We're starting the new Parshat today, page 1068. Yesterday we spoke about Amalek, and today we are starting a completely new thought, and it's Parsha. It's Parshas Tavo, and it's on page 1068. And the Torah says like this. We're going to read a few psukim first, just to get into see what the thoughts are. So the Torah says like this: V'haya kisavo el haaretz asher Hashem lokecha nosein lecha nachala. You'll be when you come to the land which Hashem gives you as an inheritance. V'rishta v'yashavta ba. You will conquer it, and you will dwell in the land. And so, what do you do when you dwell in the land of Israel? So the Torah comes along. The Torah says, second line from the top. Torah says, "V'lakachta meireshis kol priha adama." You take the first fruits. Take the first fruits as they produce each season. Zach, we're on page 1068. You take the first fruits as they produce. Asher tovi me'artzacha asher Hashem lokecha nosein loch. V'samta batena, you put them in a basket. V'halachta el hamokom asher yivcha Hashem lokecha l'shaket shebo Hashem. You go to the place where God's presence dwells, which is obviously the base of Midrash. It means you make a pilgrimage. You make a pilgrimage up to Yerushalayim with the first fruits. So the way it works is the farmer goes into his field each season, and as the first fruits blossom on the tree, he actually ties a ribbon around them. And then when they finally ripen, he takes off these fruits and he brings them up to Yerushalayim. Now, if you want to give anything to God, who's God's representative on earth? Who is God's representative, the closest representative? The Kohen. The Kohen. So what do? You go to the place, you go to the Kohen who will be in your time. You say to the Kohen, I have stated today to Hashem your God, I have come to the land that Hashem has given us, and you give the Kohen the produce. Okay? Now, then there's going to be a declaration, which we'll see. We'll get into the declaration. But we have over here the Mitzvah of Bikurim. Now, the Mitzvah of Bikurim, the word Bikurim is related to the Hebrew word Bechor. What is a Bechor? A firstborn. These are the first fruits. So they're called a Beis and a Chaf and a Resh are the root of the word. Beis, Chaf, Resh. And fascinating, what the Vilna Gaon says, you know that when you divide up an inheritance, how much does the firstborn get? He gets a double portion. Double portion means, let's say there are 4 brothers. You divide the inheritance into 5. And the boy, he doesn't get double everybody else. You divide the inheritance into 5. He gets 2 portions to everybody else's 1 portion. Whatever it was again, he gets a double portion. Now, the Vilna Gaon points out that it's very interesting. Look at the word Bechor. The word Bechor itself, Beis Chaf Resh, which is in the root of this word Bikurim. The word Bechor, a Beis, the letter in the Aleph Beis that comes before a Beis is what? Is an Aleph. The Beis is exactly double an Aleph. The letter that comes before a Chaf in the Aleph Beis is a Yud. A Yud is 10, and a Chaf is 20. The Chaf is exactly twice the Yud, and a Resh, which is 200, is exactly twice the letter that comes before it, which is a Kuf. So the word Bechor, the essence of the word Bechor, it's actually all the letters in the word Bechor are 2s. It's a 222, 222, a Resh, a Chaf, and so the essence of the Bechor is that he gets a double. The Bechor gets a double portion. Okay, so the Bikurim are the first fruits that you bring to the land of Israel. Now, what's behind this? Well, it's an interesting halacha. You get the first fruits, and the first fruits are brought to Yerushalayim. What underlies this mitzvah? So there are two thoughts here. The first one is turn all the way back to the book of Noach, to Parshas Noach, and right after the Mabul, and on page 42. So 2 lines from the bottom of the page on page 42. Noach comes out of the ark. Noach comes out of the Tavo. And then the Torah says, Vayochel Noach ish ha'adama. Noach became a man of the earth. Vayita karim, he planted a vineyard. Now, the commentators point out, why does it say, what's with the introduction? Just tell me that Noach planted a vineyard. Obviously, he planted a vineyard, he became a man of the earth. It seems redundant to tell me he became a man of the earth, he planted a vineyard. So the Torah is telling you over here, the commentaries point out, the Torah is telling you over here, the nature of agricultural pursuit. When a person becomes a farmer, you become a man of the earth. What that means is, farming is addictive. Farming is addictive. A person who's a farmer, they're always on TV, that's about as much I know about farming, but I think, it's a labor of love. They get up at the crack of dawn and they're out there all day until from sunrise to sunset. They're working in the fields. It's a labor of love. and you become a man of the earth. You actually become addicted to the earth. The danger, which is that when you become a man of the earth, you become addicted to your produce. And there's also the danger of feeling, I did it. Because you planted it, you harvested, you put in the seed, you watered it, and out it grew. And you look at like, there's a danger I did it. Now, what that means is like this. Before anything, any project that you embark on, any project you ever embark on, there's always a desire to sample it, try it. I mean, could you imagine if you build yourself a model, whatever it is you guys are into, a model go-kart. Tells you where I'm holding, right? You build I'm seriously into go-karting, right? But I just don't go. But I love them. So you're building yourself a model go-kart, and your brother says to you, oh, good, could I try it? Yeah, you could try it. About tomorrow, because I'm going to be riding it today. I've been working on it for 2 months, and if you're really good and you give me $50, I'll let you look at it. Right? You're not allowed to it's certainly the first spin. You're not going to let them have the first spin. You buy a brand new car. Imagine you buy a brand new car. They deliver the car to your door. You got it online, so they deliver the car to your door, and your brother says, "Oh, could I try the Lexus first?" Yes, you could try the front tires when I run over you. That's what you could try. You are not getting in this car first. You are not getting in this car before me. There's always a strong desire. The first thing carries a very strong. We have a strong connection to it. Therefore, the Torah says those first fruits that you produce, you can't wait to get at them. You can't wait to get at those first fruits. You've been working, and you can't wait. You know what? It's not good for you. It's not good for you. That's going to turn you into a selfish person. Take those first fruits, which you, in your agricultural addiction, have finally produced. Now take them and bring them to your Sayan. Bring them to the Kohen. Give them to the Kohen. Give them away. That'll train you to get everything in a proper perspective, because ultimately, the land is not yours. The land is the land, God's land, which He gave to you. And the best way to break an addiction, the best way to make a connection to something, is back off a little bit. Give it over to somebody else, because you have such a craving and such a desire that it could actually have an effect on your level of self-control. Do you know that in the yeshiva, in the Kelm yeshiva in Europe, the Kelm yeshiva was one of the staunch Musar yeshivas, and one of the things they worked on very, very, very strongly was self-discipline and self-control. So among other things, what they did in Kelm was, first of all, Saturday night on Motzei Shabbos, they had a 5-minute learning session in the Beis Medrash. Everybody had to go to the Beis Medrash for 5 minutes to learn. Well, what you could do in 5 minutes? What you could do in 5 minutes is, number one, you learn the value of 5 minutes. That you go in and you learn for 5 minutes. Number two, it disciplines you go for 5 minutes, not 6 minutes, and not 4 minutes. So in the Kelm Yeshiva, they were trained, if you're studying Torah, you don't look around. You don't look around. If something happened, there's a loud noise, something, stay focused. It was all about self-control, self-discipline. So one of the things that happened was they would get the mail. Now, you know, in Europe, pre-war Europe, mail was not something you got every day. These were people who rarely saw their families. They certainly didn't have faxes and cell phones. And so on the day that the mail came, they would not open their mail. To show you, the mail doesn't control you. You control the mail. The mail came, you have a strong urge and a strong craving to open up the envelope from your parents. Good, wait a day. That gets you a little bit more discipline, more control. Even Rabbi Dessler from, you've seen the Strive for Truth, the Mitzvah of Melio. Rabbi Dessler was separated from his wife and daughter during World War II. His wife and daughter happened to get caught in Europe, and they ended up going with the English nationals. They went to Australia, and he was in England. They were separated for 6 years, and there were very little communication during the war, Second World War, in Australia, and he once got a package from his wife and daughter after a few years, which had a picture of his daughter. Now, his daughter left as a little girl. He hasn't seen her as a teenager. And when the mail came, the package came, he forced himself to wait 15 minutes before he opened it up. Just so it should be one of these rip it open type things, right? Wait 15 minutes. I used to do that with my report cards in high school, but I waited much longer than 15 minutes. and I was hoping they would end up in Australia. That was the truth. So there's a certain discipline. The Torah says, listen, you produced it, you want to grab it. The Torah says, you know what? A little discipline. Train yourself a little bit. Don't grab, because if you grab here, then what's going to happen when there's a cheeseburger and you happen to be hungry? You just kind of grab it real quick. Train yourself not to grab. We don't just grab and respond. We do everything thought out. Rav Dessler was once walking with one of his students. They were heading for a train station in England, and as they got to the train station, they heard the train started pulling out. So his student broke into a run, and Rav Dessler grabbed him by the arm, and he said, "Don't run. Don't run. That's not a pre-thought running. That's a result of an instant, it's a panicky reaction. Don't worry, there'll be another train in 15 minutes. Train yourself not to be impulsive. That's the word. Don't be impulsive. You have to be responsive, but not impulsive. Sometimes in life we have to be responsive very quickly. You have to respond very quickly. But don't be impulsive. Don't be impulsive. Impulsive could be a good thing. Generally, impulsiveness gets a person into trouble. I have a student in the other yeshiva whose father just broke 2 wrists and has a lacerated rib from riding on a skateboard. He was riding on a man in his 50s. He decided to go skateboarding, and he fell. And he himself says, "I'm impulsive, and it was just on a whim I decided let's go skateboarding," without the thinking that hey buddy, you can't even jump into bed right now, right? So to grab some air on a skateboard is just not going to work, And next thing you know, he's got 2 broken wrists and a lacerated rib, or whatever the word is, something or other rib. And all because of the impulsiveness. Impulsiveness is a dangerous thing in life. So the Torah says the first thing is break that desire to grab, number 1. Number 2, the Torah says there's a bigger danger, and that danger is this danger of feeling of accomplishment. I did it. And this is a constant theme that we've gone through in the Torah. Now, everybody knows, Jewish men wear yarmulkes. Wear a yarmulke from the earliest age. You take a kid, and from there, some people who put a yarmulke on the baby from the day he's born. Some people put a yarmulke on the baby at the breast. Some people, usually our own kids, we put them on usually when they have enough hair to pin it to. And you put it on, and the first couple of days the baby takes it and he throws it off. You just pin it on. Eventually he gets used to wearing a yarmulke. Now, the word yarmulke, by the way, some people call it a kippah. That's the modern Hebrew word, is a kippah, because a kippah is really a dome. And some people call it a keppel, a skull cap. A yarmulke, and you see that even by the non-Jewish world, they wear a skull cap, which is obviously some sort of show of respect for something. And the yarmulke is made up of 2 Aramaic words, which are yarei malka, fear of the king. Yarei malka is a yarmulke. That's a traditional Jewish word for it, is a yarmulke. A kippah is a more modern word. They have Velcro yarmulkes. They market it, call it keep-on. It's a yarmulke that has a Velcro layer inside, so it sticks to your head. I mean, I don't know what you got on your head that it's sticking to, but it's called keep-on. You probably have. I'm sure somebody's going to come up on it. Maybe we should do it. Market some sort of suction yarmulke. It just stays on all week, even when you sleep. One of those things. So the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter what you wear on your head. You can wear a paper bag, and you can wear a swimming helmet. You can wear whatever you want as long as your head is covered. What's the idea? So one of the ideas is an awareness that there's somebody above us. Now, the Ben Ish Chai, who many of you have heard of, one of the great Sephardi rabbis from the 19th century, early 20th century. So the Ben Ish Chai says a very interesting parable. He says there's a guy who was once out hunting tigers. And he's been looking around, he's walking around all day looking for tigers. No luck. Most people would consider it fortunate when you don't run into tigers. This guy was upset. He was out hunting tigers. And finally he's walking around in the jungle, wherever he is, and he sees about 100 yards away from him, there's a tiger. So he picks up his rifle, and he gets the tiger right between the crosshairs, and he picks it up, he takes careful aim, and he squeezes the trigger, and nothing happens. The rifle jams. So he starts squeezing again. By this time, the tiger has seen him, and the tiger begins his approach. And the tiger's getting closer, and this guy's getting panicky, and he's pulling the trigger. And about 20 yards away, he hears the tiger makes a bracha. Bori Priha Adam, now he knows he's in trouble. So the guy, out of sheer desperation, he picks up his finger. He just points at the tiger, goes pow, like that, and the tiger drops dead with a bullet hole between his eyes. The guy's looking, he's surprised, not a bad shot. Right? And what the guy doesn't know is that at the instant that he did that, there was another hunter up the tree with a rifle that worked, and at the instant that he pointed his gun and went pow, that guy pulled the trigger on his rifle. That's a bullet that killed him. The Ben Ish Chai says that's what a yarmulke is for. Yarmulke is a reminder that we think that we do things down here, and we think that we are the ones who are making it happen because we go through the physical actions. And the yarmulke is a reminder that whatever you're doing down here, there's somebody above you who's pulling the trigger. And therefore, that concept of kochi ve'otzem yadi, the strength of my hand is doing it for me. That's what the Torah says. That is an invalid and it's a very dangerous attitude. So the Torah wants to tell you, you know what, when it comes to agriculture, I did it. And it's a labor of love. And I produced it. The Torah says, you know what, let's break that. Let's break that attitude right now. I want to remind you, it's mine. I gave you the land. I gave you the ability to work the soil. Now I want you to show that you acknowledge it. Bring those first fruits up to Yerushalayim. It's the best thing for you. The best thing for you is to bring those first fruits up to Yerushalayim. Sometimes in life people think that they're accomplishing, and the fact of the matter is that it's often your successes in life, and I've told you this several times. Ask older people who are in a moment of honesty. They will tell you most of my successes in life were in spite of myself, not because of myself. My failures are because of myself. My successes, we think the opposite. We think that our successes are because of ourselves. And our failures, oh, what can I do? It was Bashir. Then we become really religious and we invoke God. It's the opposite. Your failures are because we left you to your own devices. Your successes, even though you tried to interfere with God, God made it work for you anyway. Right? That's the reality of life. Therefore, the Torah wants to remind yourself, don't let it go to your head, buddy. Take those first fruits, bring them up to Yerushalayim, and devote them to the Kohen. I heard about a guy there's a guy who has an outreach operation in New York, somewhere in some small area of New York, not one of the main cities. He's out in the boons somewhere in New York, and it's a very secular area. And this guy tried opening up an outreach operation. So he distributed 350 flyers in the neighborhood. He put in the stuffed mailboxes 350 flyers. Anybody wants to learn about Judaism, come, we're available, come to this address. Okay. Nothing, zilch, nothing, no, not one response. Okay. 6 months later, on an Erev Pesach, he gets a call from some guy. He says, hi, I'm looking for a place for the Pesach Seder. I saw your flyer about 6 months ago. Maybe you could hook me up for a Pesach Seder. The guy says, yeah, come on over. He's thrilled. The guy comes over. Eventually, this guy came to our Sameach. The guy became from. He has a family. He's married with a family now. Now, that has nothing to do with your efforts. And you put out 350 flyers. He could have just as easily you could have gone 0 for 350. So he went 1 for 350, right? But you clearly see the hand of God. It has nothing to do with you. That's what the Torah is trying to tell you. Always look for the hand of God. Now, I just want to make one disclaimer here. Don't play God and don't play prophet. I mean, when we look for the hand of God, it doesn't mean, okay, therefore I'm going to read the signs, and now I can tell you what God wants. God is trying to tell me this and the other. Signs are very, very tricky. Just create an awareness of God in your life. Recognize your abilities. Recognize your talents. There's nobody in this room that doesn't have abilities, capabilities, and talents. Just recognize that whatever your abilities, talents are, just recognize where that comes from. That's what the yarmulke is, and that's what Judaism is about. Then use your talents and express your talents any way you can. And to a certain degree, you have a responsibility, because if God gave you abilities and talents, then you must use those abilities and talents, assuming it is halakhically permissible. Question, very quick.
When you said yarmulke is Yirat Malka, right?
Yorei Malka.
Yorei Malka. So don't we consider God Melech, not Malka?
Malka is Aramaic. Malka is Aramaic. For God, for Melech, yeah. Koribon Olam Ve'omaya Antu Malcha Melech Malchaya. I forgot what it was. Never mind, I blew it. Whatever it is, Malka in Aramaic is the king. Yeah. It doesn't say Antu Malka Melech Malchaya. Malka, yeah, you're the king in Aramaic. That's an Aramaic zemer. Okay, now the next line is where this guy comes up, and the commentaries point out an interesting thing about what the guy says. He gives the produce to the Kohen, and he says to him, he got it to Hayom in Pasuk Gimel, 6 lines from the top. Yeah, page, page 1068. We're back to the ranch. The guy comes to the Kohen and he puts down the produce. I want to read that. I want to read that line again. It starts 5 lines from the top. Uvasa el hakohen asher yeh bayomim hahem. You come to the Kohen. Ve'amarta elav, you say to him, Higadati hayom. I have made a statement today. La Hashem lokecha. Ki basi el aretz asher nishba Hashem la'avoseinu l'ses lanu. 6 lines from the top now. And then the Torah says like this: V'lakach hakohen hatena miyadecha. The Kohen takes the basket. V'hinicha lifnei mizbach Hashem lokecha. He places it in front of the altar. One more pasuk. Ve'anisa ve'amarta lifnei Hashem lokecha. Then you shall say and declare before Hashem your God. And the Torah goes on and makes an entire verbal declaration that this guy makes. What's called the vidui of the bikurim. And he goes and makes it. The guy goes on for a couple of psukim that what each individual states in front of God. Now, the commentaries point out that in Pasuk Gimel, the Torah says higadati in the past tense. You see where it says higadati? It says higadati. You say to the Kohen, higadati hayom la Hashem l'kacha. I have said to Hashem, your God. And the commentators, well, he hasn't said anything yet. The verbal declaration only comes later. Why did the Torah should say, I will say now, here, take the produce, and I will make the following statement. Why does he say in the past tense, I have stated in front of God? He hasn't said anything yet. Why is it in the past tense? What do you say, Zach?
You already did an action.
Very good. And that's the answer. The answer is that in life, your actions speak louder. Did you want to make a declaration? God gave you the land. To get up there and say, well, thanks Hashem for the land, then you hoard your produce and go home. You have not demonstrated anything. When you come into Yerushalayim and say, here, take the produce without saying a word, that's the biggest declaration of all. That's a rule in life in general. If when you're married, to say to your wife, well, I love you, honey, and you're out the door on a Saturday night to go play basketball, leave her with a sink full of dishes from Shabbos with the cholk pots, that doesn't mean anything. And if you're silent and you roll up your sleeves, we're into science fiction now, you're silent and you roll up your sleeves and you go to the sink and you start doing the dishes, that is the surest declaration of your devotion to your wife. The devotion to the wife has nothing to do with what you say. The devotion to the wife has to do with your credit card and with what you with what you do for her. That is the devotion. When your wife asks for a credit card, you give it to her without trembling, and you give it to her with a smile on your face. That is the sign of devotion. You do the dishes for your wife. That is that you're willing to take the kids for a walk when she needs a nap on Shabbos afternoon. Now we're into super science fiction. Then that is the ultimate sign, because your actions. I remember when I was a kid. I think I've mentioned this in the past. You remember Muhammad Ali? Okay, what? Cassius Clay eventually became Muhammad Ali. I don't know. I'm dating myself. I don't know if you ever saw him. If you ever saw him box. If you're into boxing, it's first of all, it's very enchanting. If you watch the old films of him, watch his hand speed. His hand speed was unbelievable. The only one I ever saw with hand speed was Sugar Ray Leonard. He just had a remarkable hand. He didn't even look like an athlete. Muhammad Ali wasn't even built. He wasn't like one of these guys like Evander Holyfield or these guys who are all muscle. He looked like kind of schlubby actually, and he just, that hand speed was unbelievable. So the only thing that was faster than his hands was his mouth, right? And he was a great talker. He actually got Joe Frazier before the Thriller in Manila. He actually got Joe Frazier crying on TV. He was teasing Frazier so much. He was so much smarter than Frazier. And whenever I fought with my brother, we were Ali and Frazier. I was always Ali, by the way. So he what do you call it? He actually got Joe Frazier crying. So Ali once fought Kenny Norton. And Kenny Norton and Ali spoke for about 2 weeks about what he's going to do to Norton, and he's going to destroy him and everything else. And Kenny Norton broke Ali's jaw. He beat him in the fight and he broke his jaw. I was a little kid at the time, maybe 12, 13 years old. I just remember Time Magazine had on the front cover of Time Magazine, they had a picture of Ali with his swollen, broken jaw. The front cover of the major news magazine. This is more important news. The fact that a few 100,000 people got slaughtered in Syria, that makes the back. This is important world news. But I remember the caption. I was 12 years old. The caption said, "The jaw is broken, but the mouth lives on." That was the caption, right? A Musar that's worth more than any Musar book. You know what kind of Musar you get? What's all your talking worth? You're talking, but you're on your back with a broken jaw. So what's all your talking worth? Your sign of devotion in life in general and in religion in particular has to do with your actions. I want to elaborate on this a little bit because guys ask this question all the time. Guy comes over to me and says, my faith, I don't know if I really believe if my faith in Hashem is, I don't know how strong my faith is. The test of your faith is what you do in action. Do you believe? You don't believe? I don't know that you're the great philosopher who's worked everything out yet. You'll get there. But if you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to put on tefillin, you believe. And if you spend money on a lulav and esrog, you believe. And if you spend money on tefillin, then you believe. So you can take all the philosophy, well, I'm not sure, is God like this guy? Okay, study Torah, learn, you'll get to the philosophy. The test of your faith is what you do in action. The classic example is the doctor who says to the patient or to the parents of the patient, the doctor says, look, we have to do surgery. It's a delicate surgery. There's a 70% chance of success, 30% chance that the patient's going to die on the table. Okay, got to do the surgery. Does the doctor operate at 70% capacity or 100%? He operates at 100% capacity. That's belief. Faith is, I'm doing it. Yes, I have my doubts. We all have. That's part of faith. Faith is something that we constantly grow. There are all sorts of different levels of faith. The ultimate level of faith, which I don't, maybe you're on, I'm not there yet. The ultimate level of faith is, the Talmud says, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, his daughter was lighting the Shabbos candles. She was preparing the Shabbos candles. Those days they didn't have wax candles, they used oil. And his daughter comes to him and she looks upset. And he said to his daughter, what's wrong? Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said, well, I was setting up the candles for Shabbos and instead of putting in oil, I put in vinegar. So Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said, what's the big deal? The one that told oil to burn will tell the vinegar to burn. So she lit the vinegar, and the Gemara says the vinegar burnt, and not only it burnt all of Shabbos, and there was enough left to make Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos on the flame. That's what the Gemara says. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? So somebody would ask you, why does oil burn? What would you answer? All sorts of words involving combustion and chemicals, right? One of those fancy things that you learn in chemistry class. There's something about elements and combustion and all that stuff. Chemistry wasn't, I got an 85 on my chemistry midterm, by the way, right, out of 200. That's true, by the way. That's true, because the next highest grade was 114. I had an 85. I still remember Mr. Lewis coming over to me and says, Mr. Kaplan, I think you're having some trouble here. Good, at least that he figured out. So if somebody would ask you, why does oil burn? They said, well, oil burns. I wasn't sitting next to the right guy that day. Why does oil burn? So they said, well, oil burns because it's combustible. Oil burns for one reason. Oil burns for one reason. Because God decreed that oil burns and vinegar doesn't burn. So Chanina ben Dosa says to his daughter, look, the one that decreed that oil will burn, he'll decree that the vinegar will burn. What that means is that if you believe anyway that God's running the whole show, what's the difference? Now, I want to tell you something. If at any point during Shabbos, he would have walked past those candles and said, hey, Zowie, it's really burning, then it would not only would have stopped burning, it would have never burned to begin with, because that means he didn't really believe it. He didn't really believe it. Belief isn't something that you say. Belief is what you got in your heart. They're high levels for that. I don't know that we're on the level yet of burning vinegar instead of oil, because in saying you could say you can believe it from today till tomorrow, but unless you really believe, it's not going to happen. But your faith in God is demonstrated by how you carry out Torah and mitzvahs. So if you're willing to put on tefillin and you're willing to do a mitzvah and you're willing to not eat pork, that means you do believe there's a God. In your own mind, you haven't got all the details worked out. How could God create a rock that he can't lift, and all the great philosophical questions? So you haven't worked it out in your own mind. That doesn't mean you don't believe. It means you haven't worked out all the details. That means you are a believer. Your believer are based on your actions. That's what the Torah is trying to emphasize. Therefore, a guy comes up to Yerushalayim with his produce, exactly what Zach said. The guy gives the coin to produce. I have made a statement today. My statement is that I believe God gave us the land. You know why? Because you put your money where your mouth is. And if you don't put your money where your mouth is, that means you don't really believe it yourself. Guys make predictions about the stock market and sports and everything else. The bottom line is, there's an expression, put up or shut up. Right? You believe it? Put up your money. Don't dirty me a cup with what you think till you put up your money. Put up your money, then we know you believe it. Don't put up your money, then you yourself don't believe it. Otherwise, you would be putting up your money. Okay, turn to Pasuk Test. It's 6 lines from the bottom on 1068. 6 lines from the bottom on page 68. Part of your declaration is, Vayivienu el hamokom hazeh, he brought us to this place. Vayitan lanu es haaretzos, he gave us this land. Eretz zavas cholav udvash. It is a land that flows with milk and honey. Eretz Yisrael flows with milk and honey. Okay? Now, and natural gas, by the way, but if you're following the news. But it flows with milk, and they got a problem now because Egypt's got a gas field now, they just knocked them out, okay? So there's a land that flows with milk and honey. Okay. That means, hopefully not. Right now the gasoline price just went down at the pump in Israel, which means that they're going to go up even higher. That's usually what happens. They drop it 20, I grow up, then raise it 40. Because they think that we didn't notice. Oh gee, I had no idea. So the what do you call it? We're told that Eretz Yisrael is a land of milk and honey. Now milk means milk, what you get from the animals, and honey. Whenever the Torah discusses honey, honey refers to date honey. That's the plain meaning of the pasuk, and it's a way of describing the prosperity of the land of Israel. If the Jews are deserving, then Eretz Yisrael produces agriculturally and economically, and so on and so forth. A lot depends on our behavior. All right. You've heard of the Daf Yomi? You've heard of the Daf Yomi? Rabbi Meir Shapiro, who innovated the Daf Yomi. I want to tell you what he sees in this verse. Okay, needs a little bit of a background. The Talmud makes the following statement. The Talmud says that when a woman begins nursing, where does that milk come from? So the Talmud makes the following statement. Don't be shocked. Let me explain the statement. The Talmud says that essentially what the Talmud says is her menstrual blood turns into milk. That's what the Talmud says. That's pretty gory sounding, right? What it means, according to all opinions, is the Talmud is telling us, and this is a fact, it's a physiological fact, when a woman gives birth and she starts nursing, her menstrual cycle closes down. What the Talmud is telling you is one system closes down, and then the other system begins. The systems do not work simultaneously for the most part. There could be exceptions, but for the most part, one system closes down, the menstrual cycle ceases, and the woman has enough milk in order to be able to have milk to nurse the baby, okay? So, but the way the Talmud puts it, this is the key point here, the way the Talmud puts it is the menstrual blood turns into milk, okay, which is left for us to understand. Obviously, it's not literal, but that is the way it's put in the Talmud. So Rabbi Meir Shapiro says like this, the land of Israel is a land that flows with milk and honey. Milk, mother's milk, according to the literal interpretation of the Talmud, is coming from an impure source, coming from the blood. And then you get an item which a baby is allowed to consume, which is milk. That means you have something kosher, which is coming from something non-kosher, okay? Symbolically. Where else do you find such a phenomenon? There are two types of honey. There's what's called date honey, which is the one the Torah refers to on a play meaning. There's another type of honey, which is what? Bee honey. Where does bee honey come from? A bee is a non-kosher creature. Yet the bee produces the honey, and you're allowed to eat the honey. So you have two examples of something kosher coming from a source which, at a literal level, is not kosher. Rabbi Meir Shapiro says, again, he's using this symbolically. The land of Israel is a land that flows with milk and honey. You could take something or someone who may have had a non-kosher background, then he comes to the land of Israel, and somehow he has some sort of, we'll call it a spiritual awakening, which we've seen hundreds, if not thousands of times, where the person who has lived his entire life uninterested and uninspired, and he comes to Israel, and something hits him. He doesn't know what it is. I met a girl once from where my wife is from, Columbus. She became from, father was really wealthy. Father was like one of these shul guys, wealthy into golf, that sort of thing. So I remember overhearing him. He made a trip to Israel. So he said that his public statement was, "If I feel a spiritual awakening, I'll become religious." And of course, he didn't. He came to Israel, and somehow when he went to Eilat in Tel Aviv and Netanya, somehow he never got that spiritual awakening. But now he's got the excuse that he could tell everybody sounds very sophisticated. I never experienced a spiritual awakening. Others have. You come to the land of Israel, doesn't matter what a person's background is. Israel has the ability, when you're in Israel, Israel has what's called Avira de Eretz Yisrael Machkim. The air of Eretz Yisrael makes a person wise. The Talmud says, Ein Torah keTorah Eretz Yisrael. There's no Torah like the Torah that live in Israel. You're in the land of Kiddush, you're in the land of holiness. If you're coming to Israel to make money, if you're coming to Israel for entertainment, I could think of much better places in the world. If you're coming to Israel to make money, go anywhere else. It's a much better place. And if you're coming to Israel for entertainment, anywhere else is better. I don't know if you've ever seen Israeli professional sports, which is almost an oxymoron. I don't know if you've seen. I haven't seen if the Israeli entertainment industry, comedians, that sort of thing. You can do much better anywhere else, and anywhere else, certainly in the United States. If you're coming to Israel, Israel at the end of the day is a place where the way I've always described it, I feel like when I'm in Israel, I feel like I'm almost on a Hollywood set. It's really all an excuse just for Torah. That means that they put a bus stop here. Sometimes the bus stop's right in the middle of the street. Doesn't make any sense. Somebody once said, I've been living here 30 years. I've been living here over 30 years. Somebody once said, nothing in Israel is real. Nothing. The money is certainly not real. You throw out the money. The driving is anything but real. If a bus could drive up on the sidewalk and honk you out of the way, that's not real. The politics is certainly not real. They had the Minister of Agriculture in Israel. I mentioned this last week. I think the Minister of Agriculture once when they had a bad drought. So in the Kinneret they have the red line. So the water level got 10 centimeters above the red line in the Kinneret. So they said to the Minister of Agriculture on a live broadcast, "Sir, what happens if the water hits the red line? What are you going to do?" He says, "It's not a problem. We will erase the red line and draw it lower." And if you've been living in the country long enough, you just go, "Oh, okay." They had one prime minister, a famous line that they've used now many times since. The prime minister who promised, the guy, he didn't keep his election promises. Can you believe it? The politician. And so after the election, they cornered him. They said, "Mr. Prime Minister, before the election, you promised that you would do this, and you haven't done it." And he said, without batting an eye, he said, "I never promised to keep my promises." And then everybody go, "Oh, okay, that explains it." What could be more logical than that? So somebody once said, and I heard this is so true, nothing here is real except the spiritual pursuits. I almost feel like I'm on a Hollywood set, and there's background, there's a train, and and there's a bank, which is never open, of course, and there's a post office, which doesn't work, and there's money, which is like play money, like Monopoly, but it's also that you have a yeshiva, a beis medrash, a kollel, and the whole thing is background for spiritual growth. And anybody that I know here who's moved here has moved here for spiritual pursuit, because there's nothing. Otherwise, why be here? Why be here? You can do it so much easier and more convenient. And if you're willing to throw your hat in with the group here, that means you realize you're giving up the creature comforts. You realize that it's not going to be the same sort of thing as living in suburban Seattle. But at the end of the day, everybody understands that's the Zavas Cholav Advash. It's a land that could take anybody with any type of background. No one should ever be discouraged. And they can take a person with any type of background, where they've been, what they've done, what they've snorted, and Eretz Yisrael could turn a person around and give them a completely new track in life. Okay, everybody, have a good Shabbos. We'll see you.